Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Carl Lissick. I represent Drive Clean Indiana, and today is our Indiana Clean School Bus Consortium webinar. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. We have a lot to talk about, and we're really pleased to have Mr. Tony Maeda from the US EPA, Mr. Matt Lomas from MacAllister, and Mr. Derek Whaley from our friends at ROUSH. So we'll start out with the presentation. There'll be an opportunity for questions and answers after the presentations. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and then we'll go from there. So with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Tony Maeda from US EPA, just to give us a short update on what's happening. Tony?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Carl. So my colleague Carter Cranberg is unable to be here today. 2 days ago, most of our agency was furloughed, and so for the purposes of the Clean School Bus program that's going on, the impacts for you, the end user, are they're sort of minimal, but there are some impacts, and I'm going to talk about those right now. And so for folks who have rebates, those are continuing to go on. You should keep submitting, your closeout forms or your purchase request forms. I have seen emails from our contractor. There's a Clean School Bus at EPA.gov and Clean School Bus at ERG.com. I've seen responses from both of them as recently as yesterday, and so they do appear to still be around. So there's also school buses funded under the grants program, and then there's a clean heavy duty program that has clean school buses funded under that too. So for folks that have grants, you can continue to do work and you can continue to draw. The caveats here, and here's where the impacts come in, is that if you want to change anything from your approved work plan, that is all going to be kind of on hold, because the people who are able to actually make those approvals are the grant project officers, and that's Carter's group. So it's Carter, Alexis, Daphne, Juan, and Tony, and Julia. They're all gone, and so they are not, like, nothing is able to proceed that is different from your approved work plan. So if you are just business as usual, your ASAP accounts and all those things that you draw from are still there, and the money's there. It's not going anywhere, and you are able to do that work. But again, if there's any, fleet swaps or any sort of scope changes or any budget amendments or any of that, anything you're going to change at all, that is going to have to wait for a budget at the U.S. government for these folks to be able to come back to be able to make those changes. So right now, I mean, myself, my colleagues Frank and Tyler, we're in like the state rules group, but we also work on these programs from a technical perspective. So we provide technical concurrence, but we don't do the actual approvals. Okay, so we're around to sort of give you guidance and get your ducks in a row for when the project officers do come back. So we can provide you information, but I want to be clear that we're not able to make actual approvals. We can say, yeah, that looks good. It will be approved. It will likely be approved. When everything comes back. So I wanted to be clear about that, because I think I've already seen, not out of Indiana, but I've already seen some some of our grantees misinterpret that last portion. We are still around and we're still able to be. Frank and Tyler and I know the programs very well. I used to temporarily be a project officer, so I know that end. And Frank and I have been around forever, so we've helped, come up with these NOFOs and stuff, so we know them. So we are able to provide you information, but we are not able to approve any changes. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything about that, but that's the update we have right now. I will also say, we don't have any news about any future clean school bus outlays, but I would stay tuned. If we get any news, we'll relay that to you. There should be another round of the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, the DERA funding, eventually. I think the shutdown is sort of, kicking the preparation and implementation of that down the road a ways. But what we've been hearing is, there has always been 2024 and 2025 DERA funding. EPA is just waiting the regions are just waiting to hear from headquarters when that outlay will happen. And there's a state component to that too. So I don't think Sean's on today, but folks from IDEM, the Dieselwise program, will have that funding as well. Stay tuned for that. We don't have any news there. Again, the shutdown is sort of slowed that and everything else down for a bit. But yep, the moral of what I just said is there are some roadblocks to what's already out there. But if you are just sticking to your plan, continue to move on that plan, that approved work plan, and draw on that too.
Well, thank you, Tony. Thanks for the update. And we will pass on any information that's provided from you. Any updates you can give on the medium and heavy duty, the DARA meetings monthly meetings, those been postponed, Tony, just for folks that might be interested in meeting.
Yeah, I canceled last month because
Mhm.
everything was just being canceled. I might, if I'm still around, what the heck, I might as well run them. You'll probably see next month if I'm here, unless I'm told not to run it for whatever
Okay.
reason. But if I do cancel it, I'll send out a cancellation email and we'll have a good explanation as to why.
Wonderful. No, that's great, Tony. So, and I know Sean is not on the phone here today. He sends his regards, but just to give everyone an update on the Go EV Indiana program, we anticipate those contracts, the awards that were made in August, those contracts should be coming from the state anytime now. So, 18 DC fast chargers and 18 level 2 chargers. Also, an update in regards to the VW mitigation. We do believe the state will soon be announcing another round of VW, so stay on track for that. Again, we will do a webinar on that, and we will have an update on that hopefully as soon as it's available. So please stay tuned for that. And then also on the medium and heavy duty award that was made to the state of Indiana for in January. That's a US EPA project. Same with that. The contracts for the awardees for the state have been submitted. I believe they've been signed. I believe most of the buses have been ordered. And so we'll probably be able to update you more on our next meeting. So, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Sean Seals about that. So without a further ado, we'd like to talk today about our guests that are with us. And I'd like to introduce from MacAllister, Mr. Matt Lomas. Matt, why don't you give us the introduction, please?
Thanks, Carl. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate the invite from the Carl and the team. For those that I haven't met, my name is Matt Lomas. I'm the sales director at MacAllister Transportation. We are the Bluebird and Microbird dealers for the state of Indiana, selling both school and commercial buses. Always excited to do calls like this just because in that 15 years we've had this dealership, I've been on board for about 12 of those 15. The transportation landscape has changed fairly dramatically, as I'm sure most on the call know. And as a Bluebird dealer, we are fortunate to be partnered with an OEM that offers a wide variety of powertrains from diesel to EV, gas, and propane. So Bluebird in general considers themselves fuel neutral. So we're happy to discuss pros and cons of all powertrain types with anyone looking to explore offerings that are in the market. But with all that being said, we are at MacAllister very proud to be able to say we've deployed over 600 propane buses in the state of Indiana. At this point in time in 2025, the majority of what we sell in Indiana from the school bus side of things is non-diesel product. And that is also true for Bluebird's factory in Fort Valley, Georgia. The majority of what they have coming out of that factory for new builds is also what we'd consider non-diesel. So there's a number of success stories that go along with all of the platforms that are out there. But at the end of the day, I can speak for MacAllister when I would say we believe propane specifically offers the best ROI and the lowest total cost of ownership when considering upfront costs, fleet management, and fuel savings. With that, the benefit that we have is that Bluebird made the decision over 10 years ago now to partner with Ford and ROUSH CleanTech to develop the propane powertrain that we get to sell. With that benefit comes with having Derek Whaley on this call. And I always enjoy doing webinars with him because he gets to do the heavy lifting. So I'm going to, at this point, sit back and I'll be happy to help with a Q&A, maybe add my 2 cents in if necessary, but I'll toss it to Derek to get us going. So thank you all again.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Matt. Yeah, it's crazy to think that it's been better part of 2 decades now that we've been working side by side. This is my 13th year with ROUSH CleanTech, and I mean, we walk very, very closely hand in hand with our Bluebird dealers all over. So very proud to not only be friends and partners with the MacAllister team, but also Carl and his team. I mean, what's been done in the heartland of the country in Indiana is pretty impressive. So I know this call is being recorded. We're not supposed to have favorites, but man, it's so hard when we all get together. It truly has been a team effort of educational, looking and targeting all forms of transportation, but particularly my favorite, student transportation, because we're moving the world's most precious cargoes and just taking so many emissions, especially the harmful ones, out of a lot of these communities, and on top of that, putting dollars back into the classroom. So Matt's really kind, but I begged and pleaded if I could speak, just because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So at least if you don't mind going forward, we can get going. Spend very little time talking about this, but because of the last 12, 13 years that we've been doing this with Bluebird, we have seen so many different technology entities enter and exit the student transportation world that we've started to take a more of a 50,000 view approach of looking, who are we? How long have we been doing this? And how diversified are we? So ROUSH is a global engineering company, and Jack ROUSH is our founder and our chairman of the board, and really a master tinkerer at the end of the day. The American dream really lives and embodies with him, taking something he started in his garage and growing to 5,000 employees around the world, privately held, me being one of them, that gets to represent about 90% of the company, which is engineers. So whether it's e-mobility, autonomous, going under the earth, in the ocean, above the ground, in the air, the atmosphere, and then even beyond, we work with a lot of different entities and OEMs that really spread out over a wide different of propulsion energy technologies, from Ford, GM, Stellantis, to defense contracts. Every single Disney Universal entity on the planet has our DNA all through it. And then of course we get to do some very exciting aerospace projects that I cannot share too much about, but we do get to peek behind the curtains at some pretty exciting stuff. You can go to the next slide, please. So what I try to take the one of the insurance companies quotes, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, and I think I can share that with the Lissick team and the MacAllister team as well. We've been doing this for well before it was cool to go green, and really it's because as a entity within ROUSH, and that kind of spills into our partners, we're just fascinated by different technologies and where they play best. So whether it's charging, whether it's self-driving and autonomous in agriculture, whether it's delivering groceries and refrigerated goods and delivery services, which were very popular during the COVID days, to testing and hydrogen with Yamaha for a marine application, right? To different partners and entities. So from battery cell testing to hybrids, dedicated, and everything in between, we've been dabbling with the better part of 3 decades now. And we've doing that for really out of general curiosity, but then also a lot of different OEMs around the planet will work and partner with us in integration projects to kind of see them come to life. So all of this knowledge has helped us really zone in where different energies, propulsions, and powertrains perform the best, which kind of leads us into what we're going to be talking about today with student transportation. You can go to the next slide, please. So we're at a very unique crossroads, and I believe I can speak for some of our friends and colleagues here talking that diesel and gasoline have a lot of pros, right? There's some of the cons that are coming is because we're meeting at a head with emission regulation. And then also I would say demand from communities, from boards, from, customers, clients that are saying, hey, what are we doing from a sustainability standpoint, right? Whether you're public or privately held, or your municipality or private fleet, they're always looking what's out there. So while diesel and gasoline, we have great infrastructure, low capital costs, obviously we're all familiar with it. Some of the cons are getting a little more complex complex, no matter what administration is sitting in the chair, we're seeing that. On top of that, when you look at some of the new exciting EV hydrogen fuel cell capacities, really great pros. Environmentally, funding availability traditionally has been in the past to kind of get these projects up and off the ground. The cost per mile is very low. However, they are still in its infancy stages in a lot of cases, so the capital costs are high. So outside of state and federal funding, it does put a little bit of wrench in the problem. Also, the duty cycle limitations might be very unique, right, as technologies emerge. And of course, the grid and infrastructure and charging. So a lot of things to tackle, but you can click the next slide. Propane is something that we have found that gives the familiarity of gasoline and diesel because we're still working with an internal combustion engine, but we also get the benefits of an ultra low near zero emission engine that we've had for several years now. So I don't want to scare people with this slide, but I do want to warn people, which I believe Indiana's done a phenomenal job of educating a lot of their different constituents, that the change is continuing to come, right? And though I know there's been a lot of rumors, and really everything changes by the minute, it seems like, in the emission space. But from a harmful emission standpoint, like nitrogen oxide, right, which is the leading cause, according to the Lung and American Lung Health Society, for asthma. And asthma is still, the highest reason for child absenteeism, right? And so the EPA and CARB have been really harnessing on, okay, we need to reduce these harmful emissions from the tailpipe as much as we can. So we went through a big change in 2007, which really led to a lot of the ancillary devices on today's modern diesel engine application. But we're going to be heading into a very interesting time here in 2027 and 2031, where the law of diminishing return is going to come into play. And the closer you get to zero, the harder it gets, right? So currently, for a lot of fleet operators that may or may not be listening, you're going to be doubling, if not tripling up on some of your emission equipment, right? So what's coming out of the tailpipe will meet these thresholds. It's just what type of complexity and cost will go into getting it that clean, right? So what we like to tell people, and someone very wise shared this with me, the bus that you're buying today that runs on propane will be the bus that you will be buying in the future, because not only have we met 0.02 for several years now, but as you can see, through 2031, which is the projected goal of what CARB is going to be saying, we currently meet those with no after treatment and ancillary devices, same emission system you have on your gasoline vehicle outside in your parking lot. You can go to the next slide. Also, I would like to tell people, of all the different emission charts, there's so many, right? There's harmful emissions like NOx, particulate matter, soot, but then you also come into the greenhouse gas emissions, CO2, the methanes. And what we like to tell people is, while they operate in a seesaw manner, one, right, has a more of an aspect of our lung and health, whereas one is a global problem, right, that we need to keep our eye on as well, because obviously temperatures change can cause a global effect. So we like to be able to go at them both, but as of currently, we like to state that 70% cleaner than current federal emission standards is where we're playing right now with a very simple catalytic converter O2 passive emission system. Here, the next slide. Yes, so I do want to harp on that, the 0.02 NOx, but also what I like to share with people is on the propane side of it. From an infrastructure standpoint, almost every fleet operator in the country has some source of fueling, whether it's on-site fueling or go to the convenience store, or they share a fuel island with municipality and their own entity. All that to say, the EPA looks at diesel and gasoline, right, as a potential harm to groundwater, right? It does have some toxicity, some carcinogenic applications to it. Propane does not, right? So propane poses no harm to groundwater, surface soil. It's non-toxic, non-carcinogenic, non-corrosive. So I like, in practical terms, one of the reasons why we cook with propane is because it's so clean, right? It's 8 hydrogen atoms binded together by 3 carbon atoms, right? So very easily to be able to move and transport, but also when we're looking at putting above or underground tanks, even if there was an earthquake or some way that they were damaged, it wouldn't leak, which unfortunately we hear from one of our later in a video, one of our customers actually unfortunately went through a contaminated diesel damaged underground 10,000 gallon tank. And it posed massive threats. It was leaking into the groundwater, but it was massive fines and a lot of different costs to get and excavate all the dirt while repairing it. Save you the spoiler alert, propane came in and saved the day, but we'll hear from her in a little bit. You go to the next slide. Again, one of the great partnerships that Matt alluded to earlier is the OEM partnerships that we have between Bluebird, who only builds a school bus, and Ford Motor Company, right? That is a high volume OEM engine provider, which we get to piggyback off of a lot of their R&D and their capabilities with the 7.3 liter V8 engine that we utilize in the applications below. So like I said, we believe every powertrain and every propulsion and energy source has their place. We've kind of harnessed the student transportation class 4 through 7 Ford commercial lineup to be a great place where propane can play. And we currently have the capabilities to reflash the ECM, PCM. So everything that you've come to know from your yellow and white fleet vehicles within your fleet application, nothing changes, right? So when you plug into OBD2, when you do your diagnostics, when you do service support, none of that changes as opposed to what you've been used to with, let's just say, gasoline. And propane being a very high octane fuel at 110, we actually had to detune it to make sure we achieved the same horsepower and torque and towing capacity that we're used to for these applications. You can go to the next slide, please. So bragging a little bit about Ford, they build actually about 1,200 engines a day, the 7.3 liter V8, and they go into a wide variety of applications. The engine we used beforehand almost lasted for close to 30 years, whereas the 6.8 liter V10. And then Ford went to the drawing board and really wanted to get into a space that was leaner, meaner, and cleaner, honestly, for all these different applications that were maybe seeing some diesel fatigue on the complexity part. And they wanted to go back to a very basic, big block push rod V8 application for a wide variety of applications that we have. So a lot of our fleets for school corporations will have Type A, which is that Microbird E450 that runs the same engine, transmission, and the ROUSH fuel system. And then there are also their conventional school bus, more traditional Type C that you see right next to it. And then a lot of these schools have white fleet vehicles, whether it's F-Series vehicles or E-Series or even delivery vehicles, right, for cafeteria refrigeration units. They're starting to look at propane as an OEM ordering it from their Ford dealer as well. So they get to take advantage of all of that parts, service, and support from high volume OEMs. You can go to the next slide. Scorecard. So getting into the weeds a little bit now, we're very proud. I believe it's closer to 55,000 vehicles on the road today and 3 billion miles. So I apologize, Elise, I should have updated. But we have over 4,000 individual fleets running across North America from Denali National Park to Miami, all the way up into Quebec, and then, of course, in Southern California as well. So we cover everything in between from altitude, climate, and we're very, very proud of that. Go to the next slide. So my favorite thing that we get to do is really in student transportation. We've had a great 13-plus year partnership with Bluebird. It's worked so well for a few reasons. One, they're the only school bus manufacturer that only does school bus. So Jack and the team at ROUSH, we love really undivided attention that we get from not just Bluebird but their dealer network as well. And we get to partner up with them. And we started with propane, and then we moved into gasoline in 2016. So anything propane or gasoline related, ROUSH and Ford have a great partnership with Bluebird to be able to do. And we also did this on purpose because we believe if you try to force a new technology or into a very wide used application like student transportation into everything, the organic growth, if it doesn't happen traditionally and organically, sometimes the market can get flooded, and we didn't want to stall out before we took off, if that makes any sense, to be able to grow organic. And you go to the next slide. This kind of shows where it's been. So I'm going to tip my hat to MacAllister, but also the Lissick team. When we started this back in 2012, I mean, this was very, very new. And we were losing our minds with excitement at 9% of the total build that Bluebird did, we got to be a part of. And you look through the trajectory of the years, and we're still doing the numbers on 24. I apologize, I don't have those up. But over 60%, right, of everything that Bluebird built was a Ford ROUSH engine, right? And propane being a huge part of that. So we're seeing a massive disruption in how we're seeing traditional fuels move away. And as you can hear from Matt, right, most of what they sold was non-diesel. That's how far it's come in such a short period of time. You can go to the next slide. So just to give you guys an idea, it's not just a sunny California where, there's a lot of funding that's available out there. As you can see, the heartland of America is really carrying the torch for propane and powered school buses in the Type A and Type C application. So each one of these green birds represents a deployment. That could be one vehicle, or it could be 500 vehicles. So what's really exciting is you can see up in Denali National Park, all the way down to 120 degrees in Texas, we can effectively use our application in a wide variety. And this really is where it takes off from the grassroots, because most of these purchases are done without funding. I know we love to go for funding, especially with our near zero carbon EPA certifications. It gets us into the door to a lot of projects that award funding, but we want to be able to say, hey, in order for us to be environmentally sustainable, we want to be economically sustainable too with the solutions that we go. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. You can go to the next slide. So one of the things too, it works very well in rural United States, but also of the top 100 school bus fleets in America, about 32% plus are running propane. That's Minneapolis, that's Boston, that's Philadelphia, that's Miami, that's Los Angeles, and a lot of others in between. And the reason for that is because of the package that you're seeing right here. Every application, every single wheelbase that a school district or a school bus contractor that uses to spec out their bus, they can do that exactly the same way without having to change wild wheelbase configurations. Also, we have 3 tank applications, 47, 67, and 93 usable gallons. So I like to tell people 47, which Boston uses a lot of these for their tight cobblestone roads, is more of a 180 to 220 mile range. And the 67, you're looking at 300 plus, and then the 93 gallon, you're looking at 400 plus. And those are conservative numbers. We've seen some get way more than that, but I'd rather undersell that. Go to the next slide, please. Again, I don't want to cheapen Jack Roush's $100 million investment into the technology, but we tried to keep it exactly the same from routing, from tank location, all the way up into way that the fuel is injected into the engine is exactly the same way that we've seen in gasoline and diesel, specifically gasoline, because we're working with an internal combustion engine, whereas diesel is a compression ignited. We're using a same spark ignited engine for gasoline that you would use for propane. So really almost identical in all the different applications and specs that you would use for a gasoline that you could use for a propane. You go to the next slide. Same thing for our Type A Microbird product, which we're very excited to announce that they have put roots in upstate New York. So they are not just being built in Drummondville, Quebec, but they are also being built in Plattsburgh, New York. So not just for school bus, but also for commercial applications, whether that'll be, the paratransit fleet, airport, university, and everything in between. So they're very excited because we not only have the Buy America that's going to be applied to this, but Altoona testing, which is extreme rigorous on-road and emission testing. Plus, we get to couple that with our ultra low level 0.02 near zero NOx certification that we have for this application. You can go to the next slide. This just kind of shows, again, the mirroring of exactly where the tanks are going. We're not putting them on the roof or behind the cab. We're putting them exactly the same place people are accustomed to with their gasoline, except this isn't a high-density polyethylene plastic or a very thin sheet metal. It's a 1/8-inch ductile bulletproof, really, steel that we're encasing these in with multiple safety measures, both electronic and manual. You can go to the next slide. So this is really where I wanted to kind of descend more into the trenches and hear from our peers. So I mentioned one of the fleets that had gone through a little bit of when they were expanding their parking lot into their soccer fields and doing some renovations. They found, okay, we have some work to do on our diesel tank. Propane to the rescue, and she actually flipped her entire fleet from 35 or 33 buses of diesel to 35 buses for propane, and she's here to tell her story. I had a fear that this might happen. Elise, I don't know if are you able to hear it?
Hold on.
No,
Can you hear it now?
I can't. It's okay. Sometimes it does. You have to select a special button, I think, to say include sound with it. But it's honestly, I've heard it so many times. I don't mind sharing it. So of the 33 buses that they flipped, it was kind of a Hail Mary because it's a relatively smaller fleet operation outside of the Philadelphia network. And it was a big risk, especially back in 2016 when we were, still in our infancy stages of going up. But after that first year, not only were they able to record how many, tons of emissions had they removed, not just NOx, but also greenhouse gas. But the biggest thing that they walked away with from a school who may not have some of the more affluent, tax base to be able to pull from is they saved over $250,000 in their first year going from diesel to propane, which since she's won 3 national sustainability awards and she's one of our largest advocates, and her drivers absolutely love them, not just from a heating up standpoint, but also how quiet the ride is for a lot of the students. You can go to the next slide. Also, right next door in Jersey, they've been 100% propane for several years now. They started with propane back in 2012 and have been that way ever since. They keep their buses for about 10 years, so they've gone through a full life cycle. I know we have another in the state of Indiana, Tippecanoe, that has done, again, full life cycle of their vehicles, because a lot of fleets keep their vehicles from 10 to, in my state of South Carolina, to over 20 years. So that's why we're seeing now that our 13th year plus with Bluebird, we're seeing fleets now trade their Bluebird propane diesels their Bluebird propane buses in for new propane buses to replace it. So exciting to see after, a full life cycle of fleet use, still working very well. You can go to the next slide. So going into some of the Midwest school district data, you can go one more. So we'll probably won't be able to hear this case study either, but we can follow it later up on, whether it's a YouTube, or I can send out a link for people to watch. But this is a great story that's done right in Whaley, Indiana with Amy Rosa. Let's roll the dice, see if it works. Oh, no worries. But while it's playing, I have no. Oh, go ahead.
You can't hear it.
We can't hear it now, but it's okay. So
Dang,
what's really
I can.
Yeah, no, I sometimes it's through the Teams has a funny little button you have to like almost dig through a haystack to find and push to slide over. But it's totally okay. So what's really cool about this is, if people who are local to Indiana, Amy Rosa is one of the world's greatest humans, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons, but she's very passionate about her community and how she runs her transportation. So she was, when she looked at propane, she said, hey, I'm going to wait for a little bit and kind of look at organically, how is this going to be able to grow? I just don't want to be the first one to try it. So they waited about, I think, 2 to 3 years working with the MacAllister team, watching some of their peers up and come. And then when they chose to go in, they educated everyone from drivers, mechanics, technicians, bus dispatchers, all the way up to the board member, business manager, and superintendent of, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. And it's been a phenomenal case study going forward, because they've not only taken advantage of some federal grants as well, but also some state grants. And I know Carl and his team have been extremely influential being able to make that happen. And she's been very vocal. I know Matt has her contact information. If anyone is interested in hearing from her or visiting her site, she'd be happy to do that. You can go to the next slide. This is actually perfect. It keeps me more on track. So one of the things that we've been able to do and share with her, and she's been, like I said, a huge proponent of sharing the numbers and just opening up. So I don't want to dive too much into the weeds, but with diesel, because of the BTU energy content, it gets more fuel economy, right? So it gets better range, I would say, compared to propane. So diesel is king, then gasoline, and then propane. So for her fleet, she was seeing about 7.3 miles per gallon, right? And she was paying at the time $4.17 per gallon. So her cost per mile just on fuel, not maintenance, about 57 cents. And then you looked at the combined with her PMs, about 65 cents, and propane being 4.5 miles per gallon, paying at 243, right? You can see it was about 58%. Now, the rebate hasn't been in place for a year or so now, so we won't touch on that too much, but there was for a very long time, a federal rebate in play. So snapshot before, this is her very entry level, getting in just a handful of buses, 1,000-gallon fueling station that was paid for by a local provider, as long as she signed a contract with them, about $22,500 in a lifetime of savings. Very conservative just on fuel. You go to the next slide. As her fleet grew, right, it got very, very exciting because propane is very scalable. I've talked to school bus contractors in Delaware that buy one bus a year and that's it. And they're usually farmers, so they buy propane because they have propane that's right there on site at their property, and they can refill because it's very, very simple and it flows just like gasoline dispenser does. But with Wani, what was exciting, as soon as she got to a threshold where, okay, we're using more propane gallons because our fleet is growing, her fuel provider said, hey, why don't we look at an 18,000 gallon tank because you guys are moving and you guys are getting a new fuel yard. Let's work with these site engineers and plan accordingly. So that gets exciting because unlike, let's say, electric, for example, the more you use, the more you pay. With propane, it's a volume of scale, very similar to gasoline and diesel, where the more propane you use, the less you pay. And we'll get into the global attributes of propane and how we as a country in the United States get a very low stable price for propane a little bit later on. But what was exciting is you can see the cost per mile dropped drastically. So her diesel price came down, but her propane price went from $2.14 down to $1.09. We just heard actually it's under $1. I'll let her tell you what she's paying for propane right now, but it's pretty historically awesome. But what they saw is, okay, our savings, instead of $22,500, we're now looking at $60,000 savings per bus in the lifetime savings, again, without maintenance costs, savings costs included. You go to the next slide. So about 53% of the savings that we're seeing with that fleet. Also, what's really cool now is since we've been doing this for so long, you can go to the next slide. It's okay, Elise. Thank you, though. With Carmel Clay School Transportation, they were kind enough to actually send us their fleet cost analysis that they did in-house to their board to just kind of show, hey, this is why we chose propane and why we're continuing with propane. You can go to the next slide. And Matt, I might bring you in on this. Is Carmel running diesel, propane, gas, and electric right now, or no? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, they have a single EV. The majority of what they're running is all diesel rear engines, and then they traditionally have been buying conventional lift buses. So they're special needs buses because of the students riding on those buses, the benefits that we've alluded to with propane as a fuel for temperature control, quiet, just student ridership in general. They've started converting all of their sped buses over to propane. Gasoline wise would be specific to type A microbird type units.
Okay, wonderful. I appreciate that. I just want to make sure I was right. Thanks for fact checking. Yeah, and we'll get into the special needs benefits in a minute. That's something that hits near and dear to me. So yeah, the full size routes with C and D, and most fleets do about a 10% vehicle replacement every year, right? So again, organically replacing. Most fleets don't flip 100% like Kelly from Upper Moreland did. That was a very unique DEFCON 1 type of scenario. But you can go to the next slide. So one of the things that they logged and looked at is how many miles they went at the fuel cost for each. So high level, as you can see, in 2022, diesel buses were about 26 per mile more than propane to operate. Again, keep in mind, this has nothing to do with the maintenance, which I would argue is on par, if not more savings than even the fuel, depending on, again, the price per fuel in any given year. You can go to the next slide. So they decided to play a little bit. Oh, I'll get to that. So the preventative maintenance side, before I get to the future fuel, is with diesel, they were looking at about 18 quarts, whereas propane, it's 8 quarts, 6,000 miles versus 5,000. So nothing crazy there. But if you look at the quantity, especially over time, they saw, okay, right, there's a little bit more cost. There's a little bit more complexity when we're dealing with our diesels, just on the preventative maintenance PM side, and propane seemed to come out on top of that, not just with fuel, but also with the preventive maintenance. You can go to the next slide. Something else that we saw that was very unique is on their own, they said, hey, we're seeing a lot of savings. What if we hypothetically were 100% propane for all 126 units that were out there? What would these savings look like, right? And they got to play with that. And then once they started creeping into the $250,000 a year on savings alone, it definitely changed, especially on the board side. Okay, we need to start looking at how can we start implementing and replacing more and more of our diesel fleets with some of these clean propane-powered school buses, just from a fiscal standpoint, because budgets are ever getting more restricted with a lot of school corporations. So any chance that they can, take advantage of these type of savings and put them back into the classroom and transportation is huge. You can go to the next slide. So again, this just kind of gives the outlay of it. The net actual savings is huge. And what their propane supplier was saying is, hey, if you use, right, 100% of your fleet is running on propane and your volume of propane increases, we'll easily lower your cost conservatively 20 cents per gallon. Actually, offline, they were like, it's probably going to be closer to 40 cents, but let's just, stay conservative at port. So this is what's getting a lot of fleets really exciting is, okay, it's like the faster we move into propane, the more money that we're going to be able to save. You can go to the next slide. All right, so wrapping up on the engine and complexity side of it, we could spend a whole nother session talking about this, but I want to be able to show people that while Cummins is a phenomenal engine, fantastic company, we've worked very closely with them on other parts with Roush Industries, and we never throw any shade at Allison or Cummins. They're great entities, great powertrains, but we like to just kind of show all cards when we're dealing with a new engine, new technology in this space. I say new, we've been doing it for over 13 years, but the cost and replacement might get a little more expensive on the diesel side, and that's just because of a lot of the complexity that associates with it, whereas when you look at a more simplistic Ford 7.3 liter V8 design, the costs are a little bit more. So we've seen a lot of fleets that are like, wow, it cost me over $30,000 to replace, a Cummins engine. Whereas, if I ever had to replace a Ford engine, right, we're not perfect either, but there's a significant decrease in the cost to be able to replace those. So we've tried to make on both the fuel side and also on the maintenance side cheaper. You can go to the next slide. So customer success, one more, please, and then I'll end here. So we kind of have a pit crew mentality at Roush. It's not just because of Jack's favoritism to NASCAR, but he believes if we're going to have a vehicle out there and if it's man-made, it will fail. So we have 100 plus people behind the scenes behind me that have contact center, warranty, field service, training, parts, technical publication, CRM services. So we have field service engineers all over the place. One is in Indiana, and we work all of this through our Bluebird dealer network. And really everything after the sale is we try to provide at no cost to the fleet entity. So we love to really training from hands-on, web-based, come to Roush, we'll come to you, and we work alongside MacAllister for that. And I'll leave it there. Thank you all for your time.
Derek, wow. A lot of information, a lot of great information. Thank you very much. So if you have any questions, if you want to put those in the chat, that would be great. Just to provide you with some upcoming events that we are hosting. We are hosting a new Crossroads Clean Energy and Transportation Forum. This will be held across the state of Indiana. Our initial event will take place Wednesday, October 29th. And this is really just providing an update on what's going on with electric charging infrastructure. So the two experts from our two industries or two governmental agencies, INDOT and IDEM, Mr. George McHugh and Sean will be giving an update on what's going on with funding for electric. And so that'll be, this is a free event. We just need you to register. So this is at the, in regards to our collaboration with Purdue, we will be hosting this at the Purdue Tech Center in Crown Point, Indiana. So please, if you're interested, register today. Space is limited. So next slide, please. And then the big thing, this year we are not hosting our technology conference. Usually we host our technology conference in November. We have obviously decided for obvious reasons not to host that meeting this year. So we are planning our spring kickoff, which will be hosted in conjunction with the National Truck Equipment Association, with which many of you attend. We will have tickets available for that, but we will kick it off with our spring breakfast at the JW Marriott. So this is an event that is free to any of our members. We will have an announcement hopefully coming up shortly who our guest speaker will be, and I think you will all be very excited to hear that. So we've got a whole host of events that we're planning for next year. And if there's things that you're looking for in regards to training opportunities, please feel free to reach out to any of our team. We are going through some updates, and as Matt and Derek were talking about some of the white papers and things, we will be coordinating with them some of the additional successes that we've had with some of the propane school bus deployments in our state. So I would definitely say with the great presentation that Derek and Matt had provided, is that we are really one of the leading states with propane and auto gas moving forward with school buses. And I think Derek and Matt, I think one of the questions that we get almost literally on a daily basis now here in Indiana was with Senate Bill 1, how it's going to affect transportation pricing, and asking us for ways of lowering cost of ownership. And I think one of the things that we want to have those resources available to our schools, school districts that are interested in lowering their cost of ownership by having some of these white papers. And again, as Derek had mentioned, we've got so many great success stories with propane school buses in our state. So again, I think part of the collaboration that we have here in our state is to share the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And I will just tell you from Drive Clean Indiana's perspective is that we've just had a great working relationship with ROUSH and with MacAllister, and things have been taken care of if there is any situations. But again, we just want to make you aware of those various school districts that are currently using propane in their schools. So I do have one question that came through, Derek and Matt, is if you had a suggestion of where would a fleet transportation manager start in regards to learning more about propane? Would they start with reaching out to Matt to determine where to start, setting up demonstrations, and then I guess on the backside of that too is the availability of propane, and maybe one or both of you can talk a little bit about that in our great state here of Indiana.
Sure, I'll let Derek, because he, prior to his time at ROUSH, was very involved in the actual fueling side of the propane world. So for where to start, I hope at this point we've finally tuned our process to get folks comfortable and integrated with propane buses. So my preferred process would be, if you're in Indiana, again, that's very specific to our territory. If you are in Indiana, whether public or private, if you are interested in pursuing propane buses, again, school or commercial wise, we feel free to reach out to me. We're more than happy to talk. Steps would include us doing an in-person visit. We can talk about your pains, the issues that you've had with maybe certain powertrains or fuel types, I guess I should say, and what the cost to operate those are, because then we bring ROUSH in and they help us do a total encompassing total cost of ownership analysis on your fleet, and where that would compare to national average numbers of running propane in your fleet. And we will also bring you out a propane school bus to have your folks, including administration, your technicians, the gearheads usually like to open up the hood and crawl in and around the bus, and we've got the folks ready and available to answer any questions from a technical side. And then go through the next steps of ordering and deployment and making sure that your entire group is educated and ready to keep those buses running.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. That's exactly where it'd be started. And there's really, like we always try to tell, we're in no rush, right? So we would much rather have everybody comfortable, excited, and in the know of it, because we've seen, and I'm not just taking on us and propane, but we've seen where a school board member or superintendent went to a conference, heard something, and then just said, "Hey, we're doing this," right? And it can be done, but from a driver, from a technician, from a fleet manager, right? We like everybody to be very comfortable and fully in the know. So what Matt said, we love doing that. And what's really cool now is we'll have a whole list of different districts in the state to be like, hey, talk to them, and they can share with you how their process, has been. So it's become everybody kind of all hands make light work in the process of it. I will say on the availability of propane that Carl touched on, which this is my favorite thing to talk about. So as a global superpower, we have propane is we're the Saudi Arabia of propane. So all of the natural gases really. So 93% of all the world's propane comes from the United States. So we're looking at about 30 to 35 billion gallons of propane that we produce without even trying. And we export 20 to 25 billion gallons overseas. So we only use about 10 billion gallons here for what we need it for. So that is why we have such a great stability in the fuel. And most of our fleet customers will lock in for a year. Some have locked in up to 3 years, right? How nice would that be to go into a business manager's office or a CFO's office and be like, hey, I know what we're going to be paying for propane for the next 3 years. And by the way, it's 50% less than what we're paying for gas, right? So that's really cool to be able to have. And the nice thing with propane is it never goes bad. It has an infinite shelf life. So you don't have to add any additives or winterize it in any capacity.
No, that's great information. Thank you for that. And I guess one of the other things I would just like you both to brag a little bit about your customer service and really some of the mechanic training. And again, I think that is one of the things that we hear from the successful stories that you just kind of highlighted here in Indiana. But there's definitely a lot others that we want to highlight. But also, could you just talk a little bit about that? Is that the process of training some of the mechanics? Just take us through that process after a group is making the decision to move towards a propane school bus. Could you just tell us about that educational process? Do they go to MacAllister? Do they go to Michigan? Do you come to them? Can you just take us through that, please?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, Carl. It's a great question. So from a service support standpoint, we deploy buses in Indiana. You then have access to the 10 field service technicians, as well as 2 brick and mortar locations that we have in Indiana specific to school bus for MacAllister. So all of our guys are certified to work on the propane fuel systems and the Ford system. So that is just in terms of a service support stand from MacAllister. In terms of training, we've hosted very large trainings here at our headquarter facility at MacAllister on the southeast side of Indy. We've also had ROUSH come in to host schools. So I believe it was Lake Central. I might be misspeaking, but I believe we had a number of schools go to Lake Central's transportation facility, and they were kind enough to host the training, and where we had ROUSH trainers come in at no cost to the schools and have their technicians get an all-encompassing technician training. And we do, and ROUSH loves us to bring folks up to their facility in Livonia, Michigan, where they can also do technical training as well as factory tours to get folks, depending on where you're at in your journey to adopting propane. They've got a nice all-encompassing tour that offers multiple different categories and options and how in the weeds you'd like to get on propane and their fuel system for anybody, again, at any stage that you're at with propane.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to thank Derek, Matt, and Tony for their time today and giving you a great update on what propane availability is here in our state for school buses. And please, we will not be having a Indiana Clean School Bus meeting in November. Our next meeting will be held in December before the holidays. And so you'll be getting an email from us for those updates. So Tony, any closing thoughts there?
Just there won't be an announcement there wasn't an announcement from the furloughed folks that they were furloughed. There won't be if Frank and Tyler and I get furloughed. It would be if you send us an email and get a bounce back. That'd be the only way you find out. But stay tuned. Hopefully I'm here for the next meeting and we'll have maybe some updates on future funding for these vehicles.
That's wonderful, Tony. Thank you very much. And everyone, thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our office, and then we'll see you in December. Enjoy the week. Thank you, everyone.